Okay, so I had to get the door, which kind of left a little mark there, but it's fine. While the paint's wet, if you have wet paint on dry paint, you can just wipe it off with a cloth. So I've just wiped off the area, and then you want to make sure it's dry if you're doing a detail before you come in with any detail. So I can tell that that is not totally dry, so I'm just going to leave that nostril alone. One of the worst things you can do with acrylics is to over focus on one little area and try and fix it, which is a lot easier said than done, because our instinct when we mess something up is to, try to immediately fix it, and it can be just so difficult to move on to something else. But it's really what needs to be done. But it's one of those things that's easier said than done. So I'm going to move in with the philtrum, this tiny little detail here. Okay, and now I'm just gonna use a little bit of a darker gray for the shadow cast by the upper eyelid over the eye. I mean, this is the sort of detail that's not necessary, but it can add just another sense of dimension to our painting. We tend to think the whites of the eye are a lot whiter than they actually are, when in reality they're quite dark. Okay, now I can come in with just some reinforced dark values. And a slightly lighter gray as I move towards the center of the eye, like the sides here. Looks a bit creepy at the moment, but I'm just gonna let that sit. Now the tear duct is gonna be kind of a dark, I want to say it's a pink color, but I know from just experience that what I see as pink it's got to be kind of a darker brown because it's in the shadow. So I can tell there's going to be some distortion between what's perceived and what I'm actually looking at here. Oops. Just reinforcing those light values. The white you'll use in class will have a little bit better coverage than what I'm using right now, which is just a little bit softer than the color acrylics I'm using. It's just, what I have on hand at home. So it just means I need to do a little bit more layering because the white is a little bit more transparent than the colors around it. And I want to just refine that chin a little bit, so I'm going to add a little bit of red, where I have a little bit of light reflecting off the side of the chin. Okay, and now, is that dry? Okay, it should be dry enough for me to put in the other nostril. And a little bit of the shadow on one side of the nose. and the eyes. So I'm going to come in just with this very dark value for her eyes. Bit of a highlight across the upper eyelid. It's gonna hopefully dull down as it picks up the colors underneath it. So using the mid-tone on either side and bringing that mid-tone up into this space in between the eyebrow and the eyelid. And here I'm using the negative space of the dark part that I've put down to form those fine details, because I know that my brush, even now, is not fine enough to get those details. So instead of trying to paint the thing, which is the eyebrow crease, I'm just painting the lighter areas around it and leaving a little space open as that darker value. So let me just come back in, get some darker values here. Some darker values for the eyebrows. With acrylics, you really want to have a good, like, the negative space really is just as important as the positive space. So, you know, when you're painting something like here, I'm gonna wait for that to dry, then use the whites of the eyes to form the shape of the eyes rather than the outside. So just thinking about negative space as we move along. I'm gonna put in a mid-tone for the ears, and I'm gonna put in the hair while I wait for those areas to dry. I'm not adding a lot of details to the ear. I'm just layering some lighter tones over the mid-tone. Hair. You'll have black to use in class. I'm just using my, oh no, just painted the table. I'm gonna use my blue-gray color. Let me just get this table very quickly cleaned. Oops. Now I'm going to work some of that gray color into the brown color because the hair casts a shadow along the face. And I want to soften up the edges. Use some of the grayed color to add in some highlights, just making sure it's a more blue-based gray. You can even just use ultramarine and white. And I'm also going to just add in some white and ultramarine to block out some of the values on the outside of the figure. With any of the, I've just about run out of colors here, so I need to mix up some more. But I'm going to be lazy and just sort of mix together the colors I already have. Add a bit of white to get the neck, so a little bit of white added to this mix of colors on my palette. I'm not going to go into too much detail on the neck just because I need this short enough to upload in a reasonable amount of time. And I think the eyes are dry enough for me to come back in with more detail. So the background really influences the color of the whites of the eyes, because whatever the background is going to be reflected back into the eye, as is the skin color. So it's going to be just like a mix of the skin color and the background. Instead of trying to do individual eyelashes, I'm just going to do one darker layer of paint over the the part of the eyelid that's right next to the eye. And I'm going to make these eyes super luminous by just placing a little highlight in the center. So at this point, I could use some work just tidying up some of these values that are drawing a little bit weirdly. So it's going to come in here, clean this up. It's best, so you kind of have to, from time to time, return to your planar study, just because that's going to make something seem more realistic than necessarily just following the photograph. Oof, it's not making it any better. And I'm just going to reinforce the iris and the nostrils before calling it a day on this one. You can also get a little highlight on the lips. Okay, so I'm gonna leave that there so I can get this all uploaded in times for class, but I hope this was helpful. You can let me know in the comments if you have any questions. And these paints are just drying a little bit weirdly. I'll probably end up fiddling with this a bit more, but that will be it for today. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in class.